Area code. Who do we got?
This is Joanne.
Hey, Joanne, you made it in. Awesome.
Yes. Excuse me.
That's
Got
all
a
right.
frog in my throat.
It's all right. So do you have anybody, are you wanting to call in to talk to the spirits tonight?
Yes.
Do you have a particular spirit in mind?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. So Rob's going to fire it up here, and I want you to call out to them. Now, you can say their name. That's up to you. Or you can try to get them to say it's their name for validation, however you want to do it. Sometimes I think it's best just to say their name as a way to call out to their energy. Not their last name, just the first. It's up to you. But validation questions are great, too. So, all right, go ahead. Call out.
I'm actually going to call out for my grandfather.
Okay.
I don't want to say his name.
Okay.
Because more than one person in the family who's passed that have the same name.
Okay. And Joanne's grandfather come through.
Jeez. And all that stress. Your hair.
What? Joanne's calling for her grandfather. Can he speak?
Jeez. And what?
You.
Yes. Yeah.
We used to call him Pepe because he was French. Or he's French.
Yep. Yep.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You hear that?
Yeah.
Was it a
It
pep
said-
or Pepe?
I sound like Pepe.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pepe.
It sounded like it repeated you.
Yep.
French Canadian.
For now, talk to.
Is Pepe here?
Oh. Clap. No.
Or can someone help Pepe communicate with her?
Energy.
I gotta tell you, he actually died when I was very young, and I have a brief memory of him. And when that voice came through, that first voice, boy, that sounded like him.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. We do get that. I get people that call in and they hear the voices of their loved ones, but sometimes a lot of times the messages are coming through in all these different voices and you're getting messages, but I've heard my grandmother's voice through here before.
There's something that happened when I was young. This is after he passed. And I'm sort of looking for validation that it was him.
Okay, if you know what she's talking about, can you give her something for validation that she'll understand?
Oh my God.
What?
I just heard the word yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you what it was.
Yeah.
That happened to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we were little, I came from a family of 4 brothers and me and my parents. And my youngest brother and I, we used to share a bedroom. And when I got to the age of asking questions, because I was the only girl, my mother told my father I need a room of my own. Well, this was after my grandfather had passed. And we had a very large porch, a screened-in porch. And what my father did was he divided that porch into an entryway and into a bedroom for me. And he borrowed the money from my grandmother to be able to build those 2 rooms. And once I got moved into that bedroom, which was mine, one night I remember waking up and I looked to the left and all I saw was this floating head.
Oh, wow.
And it scared the bejeebies out of me.
Wow.
And of course I started screaming.
Yeah.
And my room was right next to my parents' room. And there was this false window
Yeah.
between my room and their room. And of course, my mother and dad woke up and my mother came running in. And,
Yeah.
I remember the face, but I couldn't for the longest time not remember what my grandfather looked like. And strangely enough, my father had no pictures of his father in their collection of family pictures. And it wasn't until, I want to say when my uncle, which was my father's brother, when he passed away, which was a number of years after my dad died.
Yeah.
At his funeral, when my cousins had the photo albums of his family, when I saw a picture of my grandfather, that I realized that that was him.
Wow.
That I had seen that floating head
May I ask
in
you
my
a question?
bedroom.
I got some questions
Sure.
too.
When you
Sure.
saw it, what color was it?
Yeah, see, you're asking my question because of my experience.
I remember it was green.
Oh my god! 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 Okay, Joanne, hold on a second. Okay, I know
Yep.
it looked like your grandfather, but I've been searching. I've only known one other person to really tell me a green floating head story because I had mine. When I was 4 or 5, me and my cousin Phillip saw a green floating head that terrified us one night, and chased us out of the room. Now it was female. This one I saw was female, and it reminded me. I've always been freaked out by the Wizard of Oz because it reminded me of the green and all that, and that's why I have the green glowing stuff in the background, and green's like my favorite colors because it was glowing green. And I'd heard this kind of moaning, crying, and then it's just poof through the wall, and it was this loud wail, and it was spinning around the room. And me and my cousin, basically booted it out, got out of there. To make the story short, he never heard the wailing though, and he just remembers the green floating head, and he thought it was a nightmare until I reminded him of it. But he's not Irish like I am. And I heard the wailing. I always wondered if it was a banshee. And I met one other person when I was really just starting out in paranormal investigation during a group thing I was in. Happened just by chance to be mentioning that they had seen a green floating head when they were a child about the same age. And they didn't hear anything, but they saw it floating over their father when they were just a little girl. And she was Irish, a lot of Irish heritage. So I don't know. I've always thought about that. But I've been searching for other people who've had experiences or seen a green floating head. So you said it looked like your grandfather, but there was a green hue to it? A green glow?
Yes.
Wow. How old were you?
Well, it was before I started school. I started school at the age of 6.
Okay, so you're around the same age. Oh my God, Joanne, I've been searching for people with this story, and maybe it's not related or not, but you're around the same age. So did you hear any noises?
I don't remember, to tell you the truth.
That's how it was for my cousin. He says, I don't remember a noise or anything. I remember it. I remember it starting out with like a hearing of somebody crying. I thought it was his mom crying or weeping. I'm like, why is his mom crying?
I don't remember what it was exactly that woke me up from that. All I do is, and my mother, I'm old, okay? I'm almost 100% certain that I'm much older than you are.
I'm 42.
And, okay, well, I'm about a little over 20 years older than you are.
The lady who had this encounter was older than me by about 10 years, probably, I think, if I remember right.
Okay. another similarity in what you were saying. I have a brother by the name of Phillip.
I missed that. What was the brother's name? Phillip? Oh, you said
I
Phillip?
Phillip.
Yes, I have a brother by the name of Phillip.
Yeah, he's a cousin of mine, but we were like brothers. We're like only a month apart in age, and our his mom and my mom were sisters.
My brother Phil and I are 3 days apart, and 2 years. 2 years and 3 days apart.
Yeah, I was lucky. I had a witness to my encounter, and we were like, it was like we were like 13 or 14, and it was that many years later. I brought it up to him, and I remember his face just going totally white. He's like, "What are you talking?" He's like, "That was a nightmare." I go, "How can it be a nightmare if I was there with you, buddy?" And he's like, "Oh my God, I just thought it was a nightmare," and I'm like, "No, I remember it. I was there. The only thing that was different in our remembrance is that he didn't remember it making any noise." I remember a wailing and screaming, and the only thing I could attribute to it is that if it had anything to do with me and heritage-wise and my Irish background, maybe, because on that side, my mom's side, there's not really that much Irish, but on my dad's side, there's a ton, and there is some stuff with floating heads and the banshee lore. What's your heritage?
Mine is French Canadian.
French Canadian. I remember you said the French. So
Canadian French, yeah. I have to kind of chuckle because I'm a huge fan of Josh Turner.
Oh yeah.
And Josh had mentioned to me on one of his shows that he had said that you wanted to do a thing about floating heads.
Yes.
And,
I told him to keep an eye out there because he gets so many great people to email him with stories like, "Have you had any green floating head stories?" And he relayed a couple floating head stories, but none of them that were green till yours.
Yeah. I actually messaged him just before Facebook did a number on him. And then I found out that Facebook had blocked him, so I figured he didn't get my message.
It's very possible.
Yeah, but, I don't believe in, or I do believe in, what do you call it?
Coincidences?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Coincidences. And I just happened to be scrolling through YouTube, and I saw that your program was on, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to go over to that, and because I really should be in bed fast asleep because it's almost 1 o'clock here.
I hear you. Yeah, it's almost midnight here, and I have to be up in 6 hours basically for my kids' school. And I got a bad sciatic, so I might be ending the show early. But man, I'm glad I've been hanging in there because your call made my night. Your call made my night. You know how long? Seriously, because Jamie and Rob know. That's why Jamie had to ask that question because she know everybody. I mean, a lot of people that watch the show for a long time have heard me tell my green floating head story. I printed it in what is that? Gavin Lee Davies Paranormal Chronicles magazine had a printout of my story. Because it's really imprinted in my mind as one of my first paranormal encounters I knew was paranormal. It opened me up at 4 or 5 years old. However, I was either 4 or 5. It opened me up to the idea at that point on because I never forgot it. Never thought it was a dream. Like my cousin made, he just pawned it off. It was just a nightmare. I never did. I remembered it. It stuck with me. I'm haunted by it to this day. And it opened my mind up at the very early age that anything's possible. If you can see a green floating head screaming at you, floating around your room, and chasing you and your cousin out of there, then all this stuff could be real. I was like Slimer and Ghostbusters to me as a kid. I was like, that could be totally real because of what I saw. It opened my mind to any possibility. It changed me.
Well, my mother contributed it. At that time frame, we had a black and white TV, and at that time frame, the big hit was Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah.
At that age,
yeah.
So my mother told my father, you're not watching that show anymore. It's giving her nightmares.
Yeah, that's usually the go-to of a parent. Like, what are they watching that influenced? Oh, it's giving them nightmares.
Yes, and of course, the following week, us kids were begging my mother, let us watch it, and no, it scared your sister, and blah, 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 and I'm not going to be afraid again, famous words. And I never, that was the one and only time that I had seen him, but I always had my suspicions that it was him, but, and my parents were like, there's no such thing as ghosts, there's no such thing as monsters, there's no such thing as this.
That's kind of the parents' go-to, though.
Well, yeah, and I'm actually am psychic, but all my life, my parents had always told me, you know, you're not seeing what you're seeing. And of course, when you're being told that as a kid in a Catholic family, very strict Catholic family, you start to believe that. Yeah. And you learn how to not say anything because
I was very lucky to grow up in the household I grew up in. I grew up with very open-minded parents. My dad's he's my stepdad, but he's my dad really. He's very scientific, believes in quantum physics. He's very much into science and all that, but he's an open-minded person. And my mom, who's, you know, kind of similar in the science sense, but, you know, she's very open-minded too. And so I grew up lucky. Yeah. That's why I'm the weird kid that I am, because I didn't have parents telling me, oh, none of that's real. And, you know, they'd ask me questions and make me think about it. You know, any experiences I had, you know, that let my imagination go wild.
What's ironic is that later on in life, my mother told me that her mother was psychic. And my grandmother on my dad's side told me that she was psychic, and also her mother was psychic, but they would never admit it in front of anybody else.
Exactly.
And it's, that is so frustrating to find out only like years and years.
Because it explains so much, right? You wish you would have known.
Yeah.
See, my family, I didn't get any of those stories from my family, and especially my dad's side of the family is disconnected. I'm disconnected from. I'd love to know more. I feel like a lot of it comes from their side, but I just don't have those connections.
But that was the only thing my mother would say about her mother. She never told me anything about her father. I had to find out from my cousin when my aunt died a few years back, and that was the last connection to my mother's side of the family about what was my grandmother like. And then I found out what she was like. And it was so sad because my mother would never talk about her mother, which was really weird until about the time frame that when my mother died. Of course, she had dementia big time. So what she told me, whether it was true or not, I don't know. But I like to believe that it was.
Well, Joanne, it was really, I want to say it's a real pleasure that you called in and shared that tonight because, like I said, I've been searching for another green floating head person's experience.
Thank you.
So that's awesome.
I gotta say, I'm glad that I got an answer to a question that I've had for almost 60 years.
Oh, wow. What was the answer? What was the answer? Can you share?
The answer was yes. I wanted to know if that. That's all I needed was a yes or a no.
Okay.
If that was him that I saw.
Okay.
It was that green floating head. And I want to thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Joanne. You have a great night. And again, thank you so much for calling in.
Oh, you too. And I have many other experiences. And
you're going to keep calling in and sharing them.
Oh, yeah. If I happen to be able to be staying awake at this hour.
I know. All right. Yes.
You bet.
Well, I look forward to future phone calls from you. You have a great night.